Hi everyone, welcome to my YouTube channel Erudispace. I am Dr. Mohanty, and today we'll discuss about the vapor compression cycle with subcooling of the refrigerant. So prior to this lecture, we have discussed in details the vapor compression refrigeration cycle with dry saturated vapor after compression, vapor compression refrigeration cycle with wet vapor after compression, vapor compression refrigeration cycle with superheated vapor after compression, and vapor compression refrigeration cycle with superheated vapor before compression. So first I will show the cycle with the help of a temperature entropy and pressure enthalpy diagram. Then I will explain the different processes, and then we'll find out the coefficient of performance of the cycle. So first let me draw the cycle with the help of TS and PS diagram. These two lines represent the saturated liquid line and saturated vapor line respectively. This represents your PS diagram, this represents your saturated liquid line, and this represents your saturated vapor line. So the processes are compression, condensation, then this is your throttling and your evaporation. So as far as these operations are concerned, the compression, condensation, throttling and evaporation are part of any vapor compression refrigeration cycle. So now we actually classify the cycle on the basis of the condition of refrigerants at the various stages. So first, in this cycle, the refrigerant enters the compressor at dry saturated state and it is compressed to superheated state, and 1, 2 represents the compression process both in TS as well as PS diagram. Then the condensation or cooling actually takes place in 3 stages, and the 3 stages are 2, 2 dash, 2 dash, 3 dash, 3 dash 3. In 2, 2 dash, actually the refrigerant is cooled from superheated state to saturated vapor state. And here actually sensible heat removal takes place. That means the refrigerant actually delivers sensible heat to the surrounding cooling medium. 2-3 represents the latent heat removal, where the refrigerant gets converted from dry saturated vapor to dry saturated liquid. The last stage is 3-3, which actually represents again the sensible heat removal, and the refrigerant is actually undercooled or subcooled. So this is also known as vapor compression cycle with undercooling of the refrigerant. Undercooling and subcooling, they represent the same thing. Then 3-4 represents the throttling or unrestrained expansion which takes place in the refrigerant control valve or throttle valve. After that it is taken to the evaporator. In the evaporator it receives latent heat from the space to be cooled or from the medium to be cooled, and the state change takes place from 4 to 1. So as I have already told you, the processes of compression is compression is represented by 1, 2, the condensation process 2, 2 dash, 2 dash, 3 dash, 3 dash 3, then throttling is 3, 4, and your evaporation is 4, 1. Now as far as the coefficient of performance or COP is concerned, COP is always the ratio between the refrigerating effect divided by the work done. Already I have told you that as far as throttling is concerned, it is an unrestrained expansion. So we do not get any work output during throttling. So the work done is nothing but the work that is spent during the compression process, and if you represent the refrigerating effect as well as work done in terms of enthalpy differences, then the refrigerating effect is H1 minus H4, because it is entering the refrigerator or evaporator at 4 and leaving at 1. So this is H1 minus H4 divided by the work done, that is H2 minus H1. And all of us know that 3-4 or throttling is an isoenthalpic process. So you may represent the COP as H1 minus H3 divided by H2 minus H1. Now when it comes to H1, you can directly get the value of H1 because H1 is lying on the saturated vapor line. As far as H2 is concerned, we can find out the H2 once we get the degree of superheat, or H2 is equal to H2 dash plus specific heat at constant pressure times the temperature difference or degree of superheating, that is T2 minus T2 dash. Now all of us know that 1, 2 is an isentropic process. So for isentropic process, S1 is equal to S2. S1 you can directly find out because it is lying on the saturated vapor line. But what is S2? S2 is S2 dash plus Cp ln T2 by T2 dash. So if either T2 or T2 dash is known, you can easily find out the other value. So there is no difficulty in calculating the value of H2. Then you need to find out the value of H3. To find out the value of H3, H3 is equal to H3 dash minus specific heat at constant pressure times the degree of undercooling or subcooling, that is T3 dash minus T3. So now by substituting H1, H3 and H2, you can find out the coefficient of performance of the cycle. So I sincerely believe that these series of lectures involving the vapor compression refrigeration cycle, considering the condition of the refrigerant at various stages, would be extremely useful in actually understanding the concept of vapor compression refrigeration cycle. As I have already told you that as far as the basic operations are concerned, the operations like compression, condensation, then throttling and evaporation will be same in all the cycles. The only difference is what is happening to the refrigerant at different stages. I must extend my sincere thanks to all of you for your support, and I believe that your concept about this lecture would be crystal clear once you watch this video. Hope to see you soon for another lecture on my YouTube channel Erudispace.